here shopping, and I was probably about 150 feet away at a different store when I heard the initial couple of bursts or gunshots. Initially, I thought nothing of it, saw kids running, thought maybe firecrackers, but then it went into rapid, repeated bursts. And so I took my friend that was with me, I shoved her behind the concrete wall and then got behind there and asked everybody else to get down and please get behind this secure area. A few minutes later, there was a subsiding in the gunfire. So you had one large, long round of burst, then about a 2 to 3 second pause, then another massive round of burst. We went into the store there and ducked in the back until we heard the police vehicles, at which time it was communicated to us that people were walking. So I left and we started heading what would have been north through the parking lot, because I said, this is where I believe the gunshots came from. When we approached H&M, I noticed that there were several bodies and panicking people that were on the ground. So I flashed the back of my phone where I had my first responder sticker and said, let me take a look. And I went over to a woman that was on the ground. There was a small child, roughly appeared to be somewhere between 6 and 8 years old, who at the time was not responding. So I started with her because the mother said, please check my child. I went to do chest compressions, and when I did, a massive amount of blood came out from the backside. So it was clear that she was shot very badly in the back and was deceased. So I moved from her to the mother, who had two massive, had a gunshot wound in both legs, very massive to the bone, one of her arms, and her daughter, her other daughter, who appeared to be around 12 years old, was lying upside down on her arm, blood in the hair, blood everywhere. The mother also had a large wound on her neck. So I worked to maintain compression to keep her awake, cognizant, and looking and trying to communicate with me. She continuously asked me about her daughter. Eventually, I did feel that I had to admit to her that her daughter had passed, but it was important because her other daughter was responding to me, that she stayed with me, that she had a husband who was on the phone, and her. Across from me, while I was working on that, I had another gentleman that had a gunshot wound to his shoulder. And then across from him in the bushes, there was an Asian woman who was deceased. Her husband was on top of her with a gunshot wound in his shoulder. Their small son was next to them, covered in blood, but appeared to have no trauma, no wounds. And then on the opposite side of the bushes in front of us was a Hispanic woman, appeared to be in her 20s, who was lumped over, dead where she fell. She was that way when I arrived, so there was nothing we could do with that one. So it took us about 15 minutes. Other people were coming out, bringing out cloths for compression, whatever they could do from the stores, t-shirts, whatever we could get to try to maintain compression. At that time, we finally got paramedics out there, but with no ambulances. So we were tourniqueting all the areas that we could put a tourniquet on, applying compression and stop the bleed compounds where we could. What's commonly done in basically combat or trauma medicine. And then at that point, we finally were able to get the young man on there and then get all the wounded sent on ambulances and the bodies draped. Then next door to us, where a gunshot had gone through the H&M window, another woman of Asian descent was brought out who was also shot in the shoulder, and she had to get paramedicked out. At one time, we thought we were going to have to use my pickup truck because they were having such difficulty getting ambulances in, but fortunately, we were able to get ambulances in and get her taken care of. And then not far from us was a vehicle where people were shot, but that had already been taken care of before I could get there. So I couldn't tell you what exactly had happened in that vehicle, other than the fact that obviously it had a large amount of bullet wounds, or bullet holes and broken glass. Had a good team, had a lot of people, a lot of paramedics, a lot of EMTs from a lot of different cities, and everybody really did the best they could given the degree and severity of the situation.
And as you heard, some difficult experience that man had. And we also heard from leaders in Allen late last night about what happened and more on the investigation. Here's what Allen Police Chief Brian Harvey had to say.